This is not the man that China wanted to see elected president of Taiwan. In an election they framed as a choice between war and peace, Taiwan voted for defiance.
We are telling the international community that between democracy and authoritarianism, we will stand on the side of democracy.
This is the historic third victory of Taiwan's Democratic Progressive Party, who covet closer relations with the US and desire full independence from China. When Beijing had warned those heading to the ballot box to vote carefully, this is not what they wanted.
I'm very calm because Taiwan has been a democratic place for many years. It is a diverse society that respects different voices.
I'm more nervous in this election because it is a choice between whether we want to be closer to China or to the US. At the end, it's a democratic decision of the people.
Taiwan has only had full elections since the year 2000, a democracy in Gen Z, with all the giddiness of youth.
Taiwanese elections are really exciting, they're noisy, there's a lot of public campaigning on the streets, and there's a lot of public participation. My parents both grew up under martial law, and to go vote with them today, the three of us, and to be able to cast our votes in a democratic Taiwan is something that I think is incredibly moving.
This is what Taiwan's voters fear losing if China completes its unfinished civil war. When Mao rose to power, the nationalist Chinese government fled to Taiwan and ever since has been looking over its shoulder. Today, Taiwan is increasingly more culturally distinct from mainland China and was the first country in Asia to legalize gay marriage. Yet Beijing has promised to unify Taiwan with mainland China. Does this election now increase the likelihood of conflict with China?
It always feels like there's a lot on the line, and that's because of Taiwan's unique and precarious situation in the international system, where it operates like a de facto independent country, but it receives very little formal diplomatic support. However, Taiwan alone cannot resolve its geopolitical dilemmas, because this is a dilemma that's been created by Chinese claims over Taiwan, Chinese ideology towards Taiwan.
Taiwan has been a fault line between the US and China. The US have been an ally of Taiwan, but President Biden has avoided support for independence, as conflict would have major regional and international consequences. Taiwan produces the majority of the silicone chips essential to new computers and the global economy. It is Taiwan's economy that has been a silent backdrop behind the election. The price of staple goods has risen and wages have declined. Taiwan's cost of living has cost the DPP votes. The party may have won the presidency, but it has now lost control of parliament.
I'm somewhat concerned about the fact that none of the three parties have achieved a majority in parliament, but I think this is another choice made by the Taiwanese people.
Taiwan's new president is facing constraints and under pressure to be cautious. Last year, China increased its military drills in Taiwan's territory, and the election of a man they have called a separatist is unlikely to improve relations. And with no dialogue with Taiwan's governing party since 2016, the question is what's next for China's 74-year standoff with the island it considers a Chinese region in rebellion.
Well, a little earlier, I spoke to Yun Sun, director of the China program at the Washington, D.C. international think tank, the Stimson Center. I began by asking her what she thought of William Lai's victory speech.
The whole focus on Taiwan, a lot is about the relationship with China and whether Taiwan is justifiably having a rightful place in the world, on the world stage. In terms of the democracy, I think the ruling party as well as the opposition political parties have been emphasizing that this is the exercise of the will of the Taiwanese people. It's not up for China to decide the island's future. It's not up to the United States to decide the island's future. It's about the 23 million voters in Taiwan and where they want the island to go.
But this is going to be a result that isn't going to go down well in Beijing, isn't it? It's going to be not necessarily Beijing's preferred candidate, is it?
Oh, he's definitely not Beijing's preferred candidate. And we knew that from a long time ago that he is already presumed guilty in Beijing's view, because the Chinese believe no matter what he says, he is going to be pursuing a platform for Taiwan independence regardless. So that is true. So he is not Beijing's preferred candidate. But also saying that China has been preparing for this result since much earlier on, since at least throughout the year of 2023. I did not come across any Chinese policy experts or interlocutor who believed that the KMT had a good chance to win this election.
Will Beijing be seeing right now as a really good time, do you think, to kind of up military action? Because the world's attention is just so diverted in different areas at the moment.
I think it depends on what those military actions will be targeting. That if it's targeting an invasion of Taiwan, no, I don't think that is China's priority at this time. But if it's targeting deterring the DPP candidate, or not the DPP president-elect, deterring him from making statements or crossing the red lines in China's view, I think that is very likely.
He won 40% of the vote, but that's kind of 60% of the electorate who don't necessarily want him in power or don't necessarily see his viewpoint. Does that mean that he'll have to be more moderate in how he goes ahead and how he governs Taiwan?
I think that is very likely, because you're right. We are looking at 60% of the voters did not vote for him. And in fact, if the two opposition parties could have established a coalition, they could have won this election. So DPP certainly faces a lot of headwind in terms of the domestic disapproval and the unpopularity of their policy, especially the domestic policies in the past 8 years. But those will be primarily domestic issues. On the issue of cross-strait relations, I think people are generally pleased with the status quo. So if he is keen on maintaining the status quo, I think he will be having the support of the Taiwanese people.
Yun Sun, thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.